With a diverse background that includes working as a school teacher, a youth minister, and in the music industry, Julie Dove moved to Los Angeles in 2001 to pursue acting and filmmaking. She's a graduate of Second City Los Angeles Writing and Acting Conservatories. She holds a degree in cinema production from Los Angeles City College, and she earned both bachelor's and master's degrees in theater and a little bit of journalism from East Texas A&M, which was called East Texas State University at the time. She's appeared in popular TV series like Days of Our Lives, The Office, and Angie Tribeca, and she's also written and produced several projects. Today, we're even going to discuss her journey, her interest in true crime, and her podcast, True Texas Crime. I'm going to get this name right. True Texas Crime: The Significant Life of Angela Stevens. Welcome, Julie.
Hi, thank you. Sorry if you heard that beep there. I've got it on Do Not Disturb, but I can do all these things but not figure out the iPhone.
Don't worry about it. We'll likely have beeps throughout, and that's because there are folks who want to know what we're talking about. So thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me. You have a diverse background. You worked as a school teacher. We mentioned a youth minister and in the music
Yeah.
industry. Can you maybe share some key moments from your upbringing that shaped your career path and influenced your decision to pursue acting and filmmaking?
Sure. When I was at East Texas, I was Julie Carr. That's my maiden name. Dove is my stage name now and also belongs to my ex-husband. Well, one of my ex-husbands. All my exes live in Texas. But yeah, I was, grew up in Princeton, Texas, about, I don't know, 45 minutes outside of Commerce. And I grew up going to the United Methodist Church, and I really loved going there. And when I was at East Texas in the theater department, it's hard to imagine in 1988, 89, 90 going from the East Texas stage to being on a television show in New York or Los Angeles. It was hard for me,
Sure.
maybe not for other people. I was scared to leave the comfort of my, family and friends that I knew. So I had been pretty active in youth group, and during my senior year in high school, I wrote a sermon and asked the minister if I could preach in church, which looking back on it now, absolutely a wonderful experience and great for my faith, but it was all performing. It was like, oh, can I get up and perform for the church?
Sure.
So when I was in school getting my bachelor's there, I decided that I wanted to, think about going to seminary. So and then ended up pursuing that after trying my hand at teaching school. I went back to my school, Princeton High School, when I was 21 and became the high school drama teacher there.
Oh,
So
wow.
and I went on an emergency teaching certificate, which I don't even know if they have anymore. So I had to enroll immediately to get my teaching certificate. And that's when I also enrolled to get my master's degree. And I taught for 3 years, and I mean, probably a lot of it was age. I was 21, 22, teaching like 17 and 18-year-olds.
Sure. Sure.
And I'm
Not a
pretty
big
short,
age gap.
pretty
Yeah.
short. So,
Yeah.
and all of my colleagues were people that had just been my teachers 4 years prior.
Hmm.
So that's when I applied and got accepted to Perkins School of Theology at SMU, and went there for probably 2 years, I think. And again, made an A in preaching, struggled in the philosophy and Old Testament classes and such. So at the time, I was working at KPLX, which is now The Wolf 99.5. I was working part-time there while I was in seminary, and that's how I kind of got connected to the Nashville music industry. People from the record companies would bring all of the artists, the new artists coming in. I particularly remember LeAnn Rimes hanging around the station all the
Sure.
time
Sure.
prior to Blue coming out. I always like to say, well, one of my last jobs in radio in Dallas was I played LeAnn Rimes $1,000 to play and sing to karaoke tracks at the grand opening of the Waxahachie Walmart Supercenter
Yeah. Sure.
in the
Sure.
90s.
Sure.
So, yeah, so I wanted to move to Nashville. When I realized that seminary was again a great exploration of my faith and my relationship with God, which I'm proud to still have a good relationship.
Sure.
I realized it was about trying another way to perform. And then the other duties of being a minister where people need to come to you about some really serious issues. I didn't feel equipped for that, and that would be a better calling for someone else. And so, I wanting to be an actress and be in the entertainment industry, moving to Nashville, not to be a singer, I don't sing, seemed like it would be a safe choice to move away from home, safer than like New York or LA.
Right.
So my husband and I at the time moved to Nashville, and I just immediately started working in record companies, publishing companies. My very first job was working a half a day at Scott Hendricks's company, who's a famous producer, and another half a day at Major Bob Music, which is the publishing company for Garth Brooks.
Sure.
So just from, and it's like, it was also like a small town and like a family. And I feel like it was a town that really fostered people following their dreams. Like LA and New York, has so many creative people too, but it's just so big and it's hard to connect with people. It feels a little more transactional at times. But in Nashville, it felt like everybody was like rooting for you there. So while I was in Nashville from 96 to 2001, my husband left me. And I found myself 29 on a second divorce. And with the opportunity to start my life over again. And the record company job that I had, which I loved, it turned into the person that was traveling to the radio stations with the artists.
Sure.
The record company was Asylum Records. I got to work with George Jones on his last new album that he made,
Wow.
called Cold Hard Truth, and he won a Grammy, and we got a gold record. You can kind of see a blur there in the background. It's one of my most happy accomplishments in the music industry. That record company was merging. That's right when the record companies all started to like consolidate, and entertainment industries were starting to do that first round of consolidation. So I found myself like looking for a new career direction, and I said to myself, "You've always wanted to be an actress. Like you have absolutely no excuse at this point. You've already made the accomplishment of being able to live away from home in another state. You've made it on your own. You've made it in this industry. You can do what you want." So I found a great music industry job working for Premier Radio Networks, which is now iHeart. I don't know if they call it iHeartRadio, iHeartMedia. I think it's got several names.
I think it's media now. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
iHeartMedia.
Yeah.
And I started working for them in Nashville, working with the country, all the labels, selling them what's called media-based research, which is how they compile the numbers for the songs on the chart.
Sure.
After being there for a year or so, I asked if I could be transferred to the Los Angeles office and work in all formats. And they said, "Oh, we don't have a job for you." And my confidence was so high then. I was like, "Well, I'm moving to LA. It's up to you if you want to keep." And they're like, "Oh, no, we want to keep you." So I moved there with the intention of leaving that job. But I stayed for a few years. I took all of the acting classes. iHeart Media paid for all of my second city and all of that. And then I took the leap to where around 2005 is when I started doing like I've had every kind of part-time job you can have: nanny, barista, I valet parked cars, babysit, like
Sure.
everything.
Sure.
And then in 2004, no, I'm sorry, 2014, I think 2011 is when I booked my first TV show job. And I've been working in TV since. I mean, I still have other part-time jobs, but I don't have to have as many.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Those are fun. And then I've read online, folks really like your character, that arc on Days of Our Lives whenever they did. People really responded well to that, even though it was sort of a villainous
I
character.
was a villain, which is very funny. And I had done a couple of appearances on there, and I'd always wanted to be on a soap growing up. That was my initial draw to acting. And because, they were so popular in the 80s and 90s, there were so many on TV. So I was so excited to be on Days of Our Lives. And then when they brought me back and just surprisingly made me this killer of this main character and then ended up killing some more people, I was on for 3 months. It was really a lot of fun. And I still get to do fan events, and people message me still and say, "I'm just catching up on the show from 6 months ago and you were great." So it's really been such a fun ride.
Well, that's awesome. And I kind of feel, first of all, I feel like we're going to have to also circle back and hang out another time because I too drew paychecks from Susquehanna Pfaltzgraff for a little
Oh,
while,
absolutely. Love
working at
Susquehanna. Yeah.
99.5 The Wolf. I did a little stint there back when I was in college, actually, here studying radio and television broadcasting, and I got to work there for
Smokey Rivers was still there, right? Because
yeah, Smokey, yeah, and he picked me up to do some
he
weekends.
started when I was there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we're still connected on Facebook.
Me
We'll have
too.
to, yeah,
Me
we'll bring
too.
you. Yeah, yeah, good. Well, hey, maybe we've crossed paths and didn't know it already prior to
I
today,
mean, we
but
don't know. We don't know, right?
but I do want to talk about because there's another thing that we sort of have in common. This one, though, I haven't gotten nearly as far along as you have, but we want to talk a little bit now about the genre of true crime podcasting.
Yeah.
So our little foray was we were looking into a disappearance that happened in 1998 in Tawakoni, which is South Hunt County, and you're looking into earlier than that, in the early 90s, over in Princeton, which I
Yeah.
thought, hey, we had a little bit of crossover. We ended up with, gosh, 27, 26 episodes, something like that, and we still never got to the end of it. And then what happened was they
Wow.
found her in Lake Tawakoni, and so it kind of wrapped the podcast for us. But
Yeah.
we were able to kind of get people talking about it, which was, we approached it from a news angle whenever we did that. But I want to learn more about True Texas Crime: The Significant Life of Angela Stevens. That's your podcast, which has been nominated for a Webby Award.
Yes, it's nominated for a Webby Award. I guess it's nominated twice. It's nominated for Best Indie Podcast Limited Run, which is voted on by this Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences, the Webby's judges. And then we're eligible in that same category in a public voted award called the People's Voice. So we could win we are currently winning the voting category, which I would love for you to post the link where
Sure,
people can
sure.
vote now through April 18th. So we have the opportunity to be awarded that and possibly be awarded by the Academy. They announced the winners on April 22nd, and then there's a ceremony in May in New York. But I'm really, really proud of this project and so happy to talk with you about it. I feel like I've done a lot of incredible things, more than I ever thought I could accomplish. And I'm most proud of this. It just really means a lot to me to be able to tell this story.
I know that we are excited whenever we're able to win awards, whenever the industry is kind of shining a light on what it is that we're doing. But at the heart, we're telling stories about oftentimes poignant and tragic things that happen. And
Yeah.
that's got to be a little bit challenging. Can you walk us through maybe the process of creating this particular storytelling project and particular moments or interviews that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that Angela was murdered in July of 1988 after my senior year, right before I started at East Texas. And she was younger than me. She was murdered by three boys from Princeton. Princeton was a very small town at the time, around 2,300. We had about, I don't know, 350, 400 people in the high school. So we all passed each other all day in the hallways. So she was someone I would always see. And one of the three boys that murdered her, I knew him too. And I feel like I was a little boy crazy in high school. And um, he used to, all of us really used to go to the skating rink, and that was like the hangout in Princeton. That's all we had. He would lip sync and dress up like as the lead singer of Rat, all the 80s hair bands. And
Sure.
that's when we would carry around like disc cameras or 110 cameras and we were taking pictures. Now we're doing it with our phones. But I have like snapshots I took of him. Like he was kind of like someone I thought was like a cute boy, but he's someone who brutally planned and executed the murder of this young girl.
Right.
That I mean, I wouldn't call her a friend, but it's almost like everyone was your friend then, it was like they're
Well,
just,
Princeton was a small town. I'm from
was
Wolf
it?
City
Oh,
originally.
of
So, yeah,
course.
yeah. So,
Oh,
small town, rural
yeah.
Northeast Texas. Yeah.
I had a boyfriend from Wolf City that had moved to Princeton. So I have fond thoughts of Wolf City.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, but I mean she's a girl that had a reputation for being a slut. Hopefully it's okay to say that. Like,
Well, it's these the labels that oftentimes victims get, because that is actually consistent with the story that we did. Like oftentimes it's like
exactly.
people, especially in late '80s, early '90s, when you're dealing
Absolutely.
with like missing persons or these I don't want to say murders necessarily, but crimes against women. Oftentimes
Yeah.
they were being labeled as victims that sort of chose victimhood, which is, I mean, we know that that's not true, but that's what
Right.
oftentimes police and law enforcement would kind of drift toward that a little bit in order to kind of make people stop
Abs-
asking questions, I think.
Absolutely. And I think even myself as someone in school that I'm certain that I probably thought that of her. And I know now all these years later that I was probably just, jealous in a way that she had the courage to explore her sexual freedom. I'm not like advocating for, premarital sex or anything, but you know what I'm saying? She just
Sure.
wasn't afraid to honor what she was feeling. And I was one of many people, I'm sure, that judged her. And I think that you know, uh, probably, I think that label probably led to problems for her, making a much bigger friend group than what she had. But the story, like I said, it stuck with me all this time. It also stuck with me because I was sexually assaulted in high school and I never really talked about it. I honestly never really talked about it until this podcast. And it's the first time that I've kind of told the whole story publicly. And I thought that Angela was sexually assaulted the night of her murder. And one of the first things we learned in our initial research was that she wasn't. So this connection that I thought I had initially I didn't, but then as the story unfolds, there's a lot more connections I find out. And I don't want to give away a lot of the plot of the story because I would love for people to listen to it. We're on all podcasting platforms, or if you just want to listen to it on the good old fashioned web, you
Right.
can go to truetexascrime.buzzsprout.com.
We'll have
So
to put a link to that so everybody
that,
will
that'd
be
be
able to
that'd be
find.
great.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you. So the it was hard to do this. Like, I mean, we talked about it. My co-EP executive producer Carrie Southard Hargrave, she and I talked about it for probably like 2.5 years before we finally pulled the trigger. We had to get the court cases from the court transcripts from the actual courthouse in Collin County. Like they had to go get them out of boxes in the basement and scan them for
Right.
us.
Right.
So there's a lot of communication to get that. Then when we got them, I was a little overwhelmed with how much it was. And I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to do this? So it was a long process. And so we familiarized ourselves with the case. And then I reached out to Carrie's sister was really close friends. Carrie's middle sister, she has two sisters. Uh, we reached out to the family by Holly Southard making a connection for us. And I, introduced myself and said that the story had always, stuck with me and I would like to tell the story. Because the other key point that we focus on a lot of themes is that what I most remember about Angela's death is that people in town saying, oh my gosh, those poor boys ruined their life in one night. And that just like really haunted me. I don't
Right.
remember saying, oh my gosh, that poor girl's life was gone. It was really focused on the boys. They had all played football, and that was a key part of it, like, oh,
Right.
they're, that at that time, like that really, I mean, I know it still means something there, but at that time in a small town when you only had like two or three sports, being a football player,
Sure.
like a really big deal.
Right.
And so it, and even in one of the trials of one of the killers, it's actually brought up in some of the jury room discussion. We find out through a letter that a juror wrote that, someone's like, well, he was just a kid. He played football. He was a good guy. He just was at the wrong place at the wrong time. So it's pretty shocking. So yeah, we talked to the family and said, we don't want to do this without your permission because we don't think that it will be any good without that. It's not worth telling. So they said yes. And so that was the very first interview we did. I came in person and interviewed Angie's baby sister, Jackie, and her cousin Amy, who was also her best friend. And Jackie was really young when it happened, but it was really hard to do that interview. I mean, I love talking and I'm happy performing in front of a group, but I was very nervous. I was, worried that I wasn't prepared. But I was worried like that I needed to know all these facts, but I really didn't. I really just needed to listen, ask some questions and listen. And it was great. And then the challenges from there were that, a lot of people we wanted to interview that we feel like could have really lifted the podcast to even another level than it is now. They wouldn't agree to talk for different reasons, and I respect that. So
these themes are very familiar to me when you talk about you've got to get buy-in from the family. You've got to be able to talk to people who were there at the time. That there's common themes, and not everybody wants to talk about it. We ran into a lot of the same things, so
not.
all of that sounds very familiar to me. There are themes here, and thematically, it lines up with other podcasts and the things that are happening in the same vein, exploring basically themes of justice and the impact of violence against women. Was that something that you were looking to sort of like as an angle of attack, or was this was all organic? It was something that you just couldn't get out of your mind, and so you went back to it.
Well, it was something that we didn't know how much of a theme it was going to be until the interviews unfolded, and we actually found out that Angie's boyfriend, I use loosely because he had a girlfriend and he was dating Angie Lee. One of the killers, we found out he had like been physically, not like, I don't want to say, how do I say this? He was physically abusive to her in like pushing her around and like pulling over and having her get out of the car and saying, I'm not going to drive you. But he was very emotionally abusive to her and manipulative to her. And so that became much deeper of a conversation than we realized it was going to be when we first started.
Right.
And we feel like, I mean, I feel like I have it with friends, my age. We just, it happens with men too, but we're focusing on it from the female angle of, sometimes we as women, I as a woman, we want to be with someone so badly, we just sacrifice so much of ourselves to try to fit to be with someone because we don't want to be alone. And, in this case with her, it led to her death. She really wanted to be with him so bad, and he did not want that.
Well, I think that it's obvious that people are reacting to the story. It's obvious that people are latching on to it. What kind of feedback are you getting, from
I,
the audience on this thing?
It's unbelievable. We're close to 75,000 downloads for a completely independent podcast. During our peak months, we were getting 10,000 downloads a month, which we just couldn't believe. We have this little app, my Carrie and I, the co-EP, we're constantly looking at it. We're really close to passing 75,000 downloads like in the next day or two. So that'll be a milestone for us. We've had so many women reach out to us that we knew from high school, and then women that we just know now, and then complete strangers saying something happened to me with a boy. My boyfriend was abusive to me, or I was sexually assaulted in high school. Thank you for that episode that talks about that. And really it's been really healing for a lot of people is what we've heard. And I mean, that's wonderful because we also, we've heard from the family that we've helped them have a little bit of healing because they feel like they finally got a platform to say what they wanted to say because, Angie's mom and dad, were young. I mean, they were in their late 30s when this happened. They didn't know how to, it's not like now when something happens, all these organizations like want to swoop in and like help you have your voice or whatever. That wasn't happening in Princeton, Texas.
Right.
And in 1988, I don't think it was happening many places at that time because we just didn't have all the forms of media informing us what was going on. So I think it's been really healing, and from a lot of people have told us that, and really eye-opening for some people. And I know a lot of people from Princeton have reached out to the Stevens, the remaining members of the Stevens family that are alive, which is only Angie's two sisters and some cousins. But they've reached out and said, I'm so sorry I didn't reach out at the time. I didn't know what to say. And I think one thing going into the podcast, I had a lot of, assumptions and anger of like, why didn't people do this? And they were just like caring about the boys. And I think that they just didn't know. I think people still don't know how to deal with things, which is why, I'm involved in a lot of organizations that, talk about trying to get mental health resources for people. People don't know how to ask for help. They don't know that they need help. They don't know how to say what they need to say to people, whether it be their own family or to strangers. So I think that was what we realized is that a lot of people did have this empathy and felt horrible for what had happened, but had no idea how to express that.
Well, and that's such a key point. And we cover that here at the radio station too. We're talking about
Right.
mental health, the access to mental health, and also removing some of the stigma around it because we're still, rural Northeast Texas.
Totally.
And I don't want to say, I mean, it is 2025 in the entire world, so it's 2025 here too. I think it's time that we sort of begin to understand that it's okay to seek help. It's okay to go and talk to someone whenever you're having, thoughts
Absolutely.
or feelings or whatever, and it's frustrating and you don't know what to do with them. You don't know how to talk to other people. You don't know how to engage in a meaningful way. There's so many resources out there now for folks to be able to do that. So we're still trying to eliminate that stigma, and it sounds like your audience is recognizing you doing the same thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I used to just think it was a rural issue, but it's really just just nationwide. It's
Sure.
worldwide, it's absolutely worldwide. And I like to always tell people when I'm talking about mental health, like if you do seek help, if it's not feeling like it's vibing or comfortable, like right away, you fire that person and go to the next. I remember when I did try to speak about my sexual assault for the first time, it was when I was in a seminary at SMU, and I told a therapist at the time, a psychologist, and I told him what happened, and he was like, "Okay." I mean, that was literally his response. And I never spoke about it again for like 25 years. So,
And it's frustrating too whenever I mean,
yeah.
if you finally get to a place where you want to open up and then you end up, I mean, and it's not true that you shouldn't share with people that you trust. Just know that there are professionals who are
Yeah,
willing to help. Yeah.
I think what I learned is it's a like, we all have those close friends we tell everything, but it's also what I have learned, I always like to share from my experience. What I've learned is it's a burden to like constantly go to your closest friends and tell them every single thing going on in your mind. And so that's why you have this like neutral professional where
Right.
you can dump about everything too. And it's not easy sometimes. Like I said, it takes one or two tries to get the right fit. But I hope more and more people out there will be seeking that. And I know it's expensive, and I hope that we can keep, finding ways to make it more accessible and affordable for everybody.
Well, I think that we've delved into a whole other topic that probably deserves its own conversation.
Another
I think,
podcast. Yeah, the
yeah.
podcast.
Well, we can talk about the mental health access struggle moving forward. But right now, I want to make sure that everybody knows how to go and vote. This is a nomination, the Webby nomination. I want to make sure that I have the info pulled up because you have a. Uh, we talked about
The People's Voice Award for
right, People's
uh,
Voice, and then Best Indie Podcast in the limited run category, which means too that whenever you're choosing your next podcast, your next indulgence via podcast, you can just go pop that in, and there is a beginning and sort of I mean, has it come to a conclusion? You've concluded this particular story.
we've
Yeah, yeah,
concluded Angela's story. There is a possibility for some potential updates based on some information that we uncovered. I'll just leave it at that.
sure.
Then we want to tell another story of another victim in Texas. We want to focus on Texas, rural Texas. Maybe we're out there. We've got a couple of stories in mind. We haven't approached the families yet. That's always like, we have to really make sure we have researched well before we go to them and
Right.
talk to them because it's obviously very delicate person to say, do you want to talk about this loss that you had? So yeah, that's what we're looking for. We're just trying to give voice to voiceless victims and their families.
So the podcast being selected from nearly 13,000 entries from 50 states and 70 countries. That's really exciting, and congratulations just on the nomination. And of course,
Thank you.
people can go and visit webbyawards.com is where they can go and vote. Is that right?
Yes, there's like
Okay.
a specific URL for our category, but if they just go to best in under podcast, best indie podcast, that's where they'll find us. We also have on my social media, Instagram at Julie Dove. We have the link up there in my bio. We have at True Texas Crime Instagram and True Texas Crime on Facebook. We have the link posted all those places.
I think it's phenomenal what you're doing, and I am excited to find out what happens next. I'll be watching this. You said the awards will be determined by the 22nd of April,
Yeah,
right?
we will certainly announce what happens on April 22nd.
Good.
And then, if we continue in first place for the People's Voice Awards, we'll be heading to New York City to pick up an
Sure.
award. So I'm excited. This is my first interview as an alumni. So
And we are so glad to happen back into you. And I hopefully, we'll get to do this again sometime.
yes, I have very fond memories of I have no idea what it's like now, but radio television was in the theater department.
It was at the Performing Arts Center,
That's
yes.
right. We would walk through RTV every day. And one of my closest friends here in LA is one of your graduates, Philip Wilburn.
Oh
From
yeah. Yeah, actually I think we crossed over a little bit of time whenever I was a student there too, because I believe he was also kind of like a party DJ. He would go out and do appearances and MC events and things like that. I want to say that I remember him from that. Yeah.
Probably. So, but yeah, he's here in LA and has been, I think, 1 year less than me. We just randomly ran into each other after I'd been here a year, and we've stayed in touch since. So I have a little bit of East Texas and East Texas State still with me all the time.
Well, I appreciate that you remember us, and maybe you'll swing back by here in Commerce, and we'll get to visit some more.
That would be great. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sure. So, True Texas Crime: The Significant Life of Angela Stevens. It's nominated as Best Indie Podcast. You can find it at Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcast. You can subscribe, take it with you, and listen all the way through. Remember to go vote at webbyawards.com. And Julie Dove, thank you again for your
Thank
time.
you so much.